we have leadership that will not fail in Africa in order not to bring about challenges of migration, migrating from one country in Africa to another. And now the topic for today will be on the ejection of African refugees from the UN premises in Pretoria, South Africa. And there has been issues about war-torn countries in Africa, poverty, epidemic, necessitating the reason for refugees to really move out and seek for greener pastures, seek for a place of rest. And in the course of that, we also hear about xenophobic attacks, even the last wave that took place in the month of September that got about 12 persons killed in South Africa. And then the issues about the regularization of process of South Africa, giving status to the migrants, raising issues. And now, since 7th October, for several weeks now, the African refugees have been making shift structures in front of the premises of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees office. And that has been quite a challenge for the UN office, to a point where a court order was granted that made it clear that within 3 days, the refugees should evacuate from the premises of UN office. But looking at that, the need for international agencies, international communities to also come in to the aid of African refugees, the aspect of faith leadership in countries and war-torn countries that is necessitating this whole reason for us to have refugees in this high number, in their hundreds, is quite the purpose for which we are discussing this. And I'm your host on today's edition, Philip Omo-Gupon. I have distinguished personalities with me, starting from my immediate left. I have a legal practitioner, a doctor, and he is articulate and a public affairs analyst on this show. He is no one else but Dr. Patrick Awo-Osaige. Thanks for coming, Awo-Osaige.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
And next, I have an erudite, articulate man, a politician, and also an analyst in this respect, and he is Fred Uyigwe. Thanks for coming, Fred.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
Fred Uyigwe is also a finance expert. Well, as the show progresses, we'll see how to piece that in order to make sense out of it in respect of the asylum seekers that are really having issues in Pretoria, South Africa. Now, looking at what we have here in our hands, Patrick, we have this challenge where the refugees really basically looking at the issues of migration and the issues that has to do with regularization process of their status in order for them to be able to gain successful entrance into South Africa. Now, all of these are coming up as a challenge. What do you make of this whole process?
Thank you very much. It's rather unfortunate and quite, painful to have your fellow brothers, Africans like us, going through such, painful situations that they are going through right now. But the truth must be told. We cannot start blaming, casting aspersion on the United Nations, as it were, or the process. You are coming to a country, you led somewhere, and what actually led to that is as a result of failed leadership. When leadership have not, when leaders have not lived up to expectation, they have not done the needful. And the people, they have lost confidence in the government of the day, and what countries like some of those countries where they have migrated from.
Like the Republic of Congo, for instance.
Yes, now look at the basic issues here is this. Why they cannot just be allowed in like that? I know that's basically the problem. So it's taking so long, and the regularization process is taking so long. They needed to know those that are real, genuine refugees, so to speak. We need to know who we are bringing in, who we are admitting in.
So you are saying that that process is not wrong?
It's not wrong. We need to know who we are dealing with.
Okay, but the aspect where they are given 3 days to vacate the UN premises, that's another challenge, because there should be a kind of a palliative arrangement that should be done by the UN office. What do you think?
Now, when they came on board, obviously they were attending to them. They are trying to seek for better, conducive environment. It's not as if they were admitted in and they said, okay, you hold on a while, we'll take you in. They want to get working. I heard some of them talking on YouTube. I saw them. That we want to work, we want to get money. That's not the first thing to do. We need to know who we are dealing with. Criminals could come also. This is a country, for goodness sake. Even if you are refugees, you are trying to migrate from your own country, we need to know who we are dealing with. We have a lot of people who impersonate, who pretend to be what they are not, under the guise of trying to be someone who doesn't really need that help. So they need to know who they are dealing with. We have had several immigration foul play over time, and we know a lot of people say we are traveling here for this purpose, whereas it's for some other purpose. We have had Nigerians who claim to be Ghanaians. We have had Ghanaians who claim to be, some other country folks, and that's basically the issue. So they needed to know and to verify and to ascertain who they are dealing with. I agree, yes, I agree that the process may have been slow. They should be patient. If they can't be patient, why didn't they stay back at home to solve the problem at home, which they couldn't have done? I am not saying they should not be taken seriously. They are doing their best, and in the way things are being done, this is an emergency.
Okay, but we hear of cases where some are being arrested, even in their hundreds. Yes. And if you look at that critically, when did it become an issue of arresting migrants?
Yes, I agree with you. I know you want to look at it. There's a criminal dimension to it. If you now begin to play out and begin to comport yourself in an unruly manner, then you could be arrested. To be arrested does not mean they are convicted. To be arrested is to arrest a hopeless situation that is on ground. Now they have come, like you talked about, they have made some makeshifts. Structures. Why will you do that? Under whose authorization? Why will you go to that extent of doing that?
They are refugees, for crying out loud.
I agree they are refugees. That they are refugees, they are not insane people. They are coming from a society, and they know every society have laws and have ways things should be run. Even in the UN, the United Nations coming to their aid, definitely they should be guided. You don't take decisions by yourself. You are there, for goodness sake. Yes, you are a refugee. You are crying to the United Nations to come and salvage and help your hopelessness. I agree. Yes, there could be some elements, pockets of irregularity or not wanting to take them seriously. I agree with them that could be there. But you should hold on. It's not to take laws into your hand by going out there trying to constitute nations.
Okay, thank you. Fred Uyigwe, I want you to take it from this point. Now, among these refugees, these asylum seekers, we have pregnant women, we have mothers, we have children. And I got to see a picture, of what took place some weeks back, a situation where some are being harassed, women with children being arrested. What do you make of this whole scenario? Basically looking at it that they are also in an African country.
I believe the first thing we should take to mind is to consider the vulnerable groups of every society.
Okay.
The poor, the children, the women, and the elderly. Those are the major vulnerable groups of every society. And whenever there are situations like this, you are going to find more of such people in such dire situations. And when any person steps forward to say, look, my situation is urgent. I am destitute. I cannot shelter myself. I cannot feed myself.
Like a breastfeeding mother, for instance.
Exactly. So I have come for help. And there are international organizations that have stepped up. International organizations that have been established to take care of various situations to help stabilize the different societies and to help stabilize the world. The United Nations is set up for all kinds of stability: security stability, economic stability, and stability for the individuals. So when a group of people just because they feel endangered. They believe that their situation is dire. So they go before the United Nations and say, we need help. And for 3 weeks, they are there. What one would expect is that even from the very first day they get there, I ask myself, what would the United Nations do in a nation like Canada or any of the North American countries or in Europe or in the wealthy Asian countries? Would they be treated as they treated the people there in South Africa? I doubt that very seriously.
You doubt that very seriously?
That is not the way they will be treated. And the thing is that there are modalities for handling situations like this. Okay? First, the moment you will notice a situation like this, you have to begin to provide emergency shelters for them. And as you are providing emergency shelters, then you are providing some kind of documentation. You are authenticating documentation or creating documentation for them so that you can control them, you can monitor them.
But there's an extent that they can do that. No, there's an extent they can do that.
Excuse me.
Because like reports we have here where they have, the people made a makeshift structures for them.
Excuse me.
But they can't do that for long.
Excuse me. You see, the United Nations, as it were, is not a, it's an organization representing all the countries of the world.
Yeah.
Okay? AU represents all the countries of Africa. This is an African problem. At the same time, it's a world problem.
Of course, yes.
At the same time, it's a South African problem.
Yes.
So there should be some kind of coordination from when the migrants began to gather in one place to say, look, we need help. The United Nations, before whose premises they went, ought to take the lead in coordinating, providing that help that they need, as they would do in the more developed countries. Okay? So they needed to liaise with the United Nations, the African Union, and with the South African government as to the situation before them. And then determine a respectable, dignified way of handling it. That is what they are asking for. And that's, but the problem we have, because of the pervasive poverty of African nations, the instability, security instability, and the social problems we have, challenges we have.
Yeah. Economic too.
Our governments do not even respect their own. They do not even dignify their own. So that is why that those who represent United Nations in that particular country feel at liberty to be able to do the same thing to the Africans.
Okay.
Because from the countries they are coming, they are not respected. They are not dignified. But I will tell you, even if in that crowd, if you had a couple of Americans, Britons, French, or Germans in that place, they would treat them differently. Because from their home country, there is responsibility, there is respect, there is dignity, and they expect that. We should not begin to take the moral low road that a Donald Trump has taken. Yes, in the way he treated or he treats migrants from South America and Mexico. That is not the standard. That has not always been the standard. The world had already risen far above that standard to treat refugees and migrants with more respect and more dignity. Okay. And with a level of humanity. You see, like you have mentioned, you have children, you have nursing mothers, you have pregnant women. It only takes an extremely wicked person, an evil person, to treat such people without compassion.
Okay, okay, thank you. Now, Patrick, let's look at the perspective of the South African government. Now we've had issues and wave of this blame game being passed by the South Africans to migrants outside South Africa, where they say that the socio-economic challenges they have is as a result of migrants coming to take the opportunities meant for them. Do you think this could be slowing the process of regularization of their status?
Thank you very much. I very much agree with, you know, with a good coordination and a good way to treat people in terms of, you know, trying to help them, those that seek asylum and refugees, displacing people.
For humanity's sake.
For humanity's sake. Then I look at what we must really look at here. In as much, he made mention of how a Briton will be treated, how an American will be treated, and that's correct. If you take a critical look at the United Nations, they have their, you know, their agencies, folks working for them all around the world. Now, these people can do everything. You need to work with the people on ground. Now, like you just mentioned, the South African government, they are already opposed to people coming in. They didn't say that clearly, but they tell you some persons, some miscreants are fighting on the streets.
Yeah, the body language speaks that.
Yeah, the body language obviously speaks that. And then you look critically at what's happening now. So it's a way of saying, well, we don't want you here, and you wouldn't blame the United Nations on that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Now, because if, and the issue of corruption, we cannot rule that out too. You know, there are things ordinarily that should be done for these migrants that could be kept away. And well, let's hold on a while and see. It's a black man. I remember at the time I had the transit at Egypt somewhere, come in, and then, you know, we were made to stay within the airport, and then we're wondering what was happening. It was when we started asking questions, and I said, okay, those of you that are asking, you can come. We want to take you to the hotel. We were asking, why? So if we had sat back, we would have just been here till the flight comes. So it doesn't make sense. So it's the way we see ourselves. He has said it all. We don't respect ourselves. We see the average black man as, you know, you could treat him anyhow, you could stay anywhere, he could be treated anyhow. But the point I want to make is this. It's not for us to start blaming
the United Nations. But again, look at the aspect where the United Nations as a very sensitive group, sensitive body that represents some very great nations of the world.
All the nations
are they not supposed to get the help of international donors? Are they not supposed to send some signals of emergency that could come into the aid of these refugees rather than evacuate them from the premises?
Now, evacuating them from the premises, what makes you think they have not put structures in place?
Of course.
Now, you just said, and we heard that, oh, the process is slow. Even if it's slow, the road to heaven is slow, or rather it's narrow, but you have to keep moving.
No. The process that we see here slow is the regularization process of the South African government in giving status to the refugees.
I agree with you.
Yes, but on the perspective of the United Nations, we agree with the fact that, yes, they provided some space for some weeks to the refugees to make some makeshift structures. Okay. But that, again, is temporary. But why that is on? What are the signals? What are the messages? What is the current call for help that others should come in, even signals to the governments of the nationals?
Let's not bother it up. The point is this. The South African government have a role to play, right? Now, they are the host country. United Nations does not exist on its own. Work with countries is United Nations.
Yes.
That's what it's all about. So South Africa is a nation wherein the United Nations is going to come in. And we're talking about they are trying to regularize, to know the status of those persons. The United Nations will not just, will not do things on its own without working with the South African government. So the South African government will dictate the template at which things will run in the overall activity, because things that border on law, and like we know that women and children should be taken care of. I disagree that United Nations is not taking that to cognizance.
Okay.
I honestly believe they did. The country, the host country, have a role to play. This is what is obtainable everywhere. If we say this is what has happened and the report you have to bring, we need to know. How about in transmitting of those information back to them, as it were? Even if they are there, they needed to wait for the government to release a report, oh, this is what we are doing, and if it's been slowed down, you cannot blame that on the United Nations.
Okay,
that's what I'm looking at. That is the angle I intend to see it from.
Okay, but let's look at what sparked these issues.
Yes.
Now, let's look at failed leadership in Africa, in some African countries. Let's look at the war.
In most African countries.
Yes. But we summarily look at Africa as a continent that needs to have a very strong leadership because we have resources here. Now, what do you see as factors that could change the narrative for African leadership?
Look, in every organization, and nations are organizations, okay?
Yeah.
In every organization, the leadership has to be humble enough, be honest enough, also be responsible enough to take responsibility.
Just like Nigerian government did when some of our citizens were stranded in South Africa, where provisions were made for them to come back.
We made a lot of noise.
Yes. So we need to see such responsibilities on the side of other African countries.
Exactly. And taking responsibility is not taking responsibility when the event or when the emergency occurs.
Okay.
It's taking responsibility before.
Being proactive.
Yes, being proactive. Before the emergency occurs, during and then after. So, like he said, I will expect, and I know that that has to be true, that the United Nations, AU, and South African government, being a very advanced government, will have purses for attending to issues like this. Okay? They have donors who donate for issues like this. So when an emergency like this comes up, that is not the time that they will start trying to solicit for help outside of the organization. They already have a budget and they have a modus operandi for that particular kind of emergency. I'll tell you what, like when Katrina happened, I happened to be in the United States at the time, in the real estate industry. And a lot of them being in proximity to Louisiana, a lot of the evacuees, initially they were calling them refugees. Okay. And then the people protested and said, look, we cannot be refugees in our country. You cannot call us refugees, it's an insult. So we will accept to be called evacuees. We are being evacuated, we are being relocated from disaster points, you know, to more stable areas.
Which makes a better sense.
You know, so respectively, this talks about the kind of the respect I was talking about earlier. So respectively, immediately they changed that language, that terminology, and began to call them evacuees. So the evacuees that came from Louisiana to Texas, for example, and to other neighboring states, came to meet standards already set. At the time, I'll tell you, we had about 2,800 properties monthly was the transaction. And we had inventory for about 14 months on ground. So, and all that, about 30,000, we had about 30,000 vacant properties on ground. All were taken up in a very short time. So as a realtor, and as realtors, we were like the middlemen. We had to help them find properties and then shelter them, locate them and all that. We were surprised. I would say I was surprised that they already had standards, they already had forms that they had developed over the years for such situations. It wasn't something makeshift. It was extensive. It was voluminous. They had to fill all, and attended to just about every of their need. If one country has that, I want to believe that all the developed countries, they have it. And the United Nations usually work with the standards of the developed nations. And so they have standards, they have procedures for handling situations like this. People who are in distress have come to appeal to the United Nations. Their appeal was to the United Nations. That is why they stayed in front of the United Nations.
Yeah.
They were not within the premises of the United Nations. They were at a park opposite the United Nations.
Okay.
So it was the proprietor or the landlord of one of the businesses close by, Waldorf Arcade, that went and reported and made a complaint to the courts that they are constituting a nuisance to his business. And then they were given time. They have spent 3 weeks there. So I believe the 3 weeks would have been more than enough for them to have been processed. For them to have been processed.
Okay.
And the 3 days was more than enough for the South African government to have found an alternative location where they would be sheltered.
More than enough.
Yes, more than enough.
But in this case,
so I'm saying
it's the otherwise.
Neither the United Nations nor South Africa took responsibility to address the issue the way it ought to be, or the way they would have handled it should that same situation arise in any of the developed nations.
Okay.
If you have been following, and which of course I know you have been, the migrant situation from North Africa to Europe, it is quite impressive how Italy has handled those that were coming in.
Yes.
How they send out rescue teams to go into the ocean to rescue them, bring them back on inland, and then provide shelter for them and process them. And then for those who want to proceed, work with other nations to help them along.
So that's quite a different narrative from what we're having here.
Exactly. And here we are all Africans. We cry we want to emancipate Africa, but we don't respect ourselves. We don't treat ourselves as human beings. We have to begin to, it is the lack of love for one another that's the problem of Africa, sir. That lack of love. So it's that lack of love that will not allow you to also respect the next man. If you love the next man, like you will love your child, you will respect the next man. There is no respect. What is lacking here is lack of respect. If they were respected, they would have been treated differently.
Thank you. In case you're just joining us, it's African Discourse, and we are on the topic which is on the ejection of Africans seeking asylum in front of the UN office in Pretoria, South Africa. And I've been discussing with Fred Uyigwe. Fred Uyigwe is a business expert, a public affairs analyst in this regard, and also with Dr. Patrick Awo-Saige, who is a barrister at law. Well, looking at the angle you're taking it from, good to know as a custodian of the law. Now, what do you see as an easy way to make migration within the continent Africa an awesome one? Because as we can see, we have some drags that looks like relationships not being friendly even on the part of South Africa with other nationals.
Thank you very much. It's not just South Africa. It's sudden that we have degenerated to this point. So we can't keep blaming colonialism. We cannot start talking about what Ronnie had said, how Europe underdeveloped, all those stories. At least by now, they are moribund, they are gone. We should forget all of that and start looking into the future. You see, the average, just imagine if I have a British passport, I could travel the whole Africa free course unhindered. Nobody's going to stop me. But if Aliko Dangote the other day said he needed a visa to one Africa country and he was head somewhere, you know, these are issues. In
spite of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, for instance.
Absolutely. You see, we need to begin to look inward. If Africa must move forward, the musician Bob Marley has said African unites, and a whole lot of songs and talk about coming together. I think this self-hate and not wanting your brother, a black, I remember in South Africa, Tabo Airport some time ago, I saw this woman from Zimbabwe. She's an attorney in the United States. She was from Chelsea there, and she was at the airport. We were there together. And I suddenly noticed she was crying. She was in tears. And then I asked her, what is it, Mama? She said, I actually needed, I have spent so much money, I can't make a call, I can't call. I said, use my phone. And I gave her my phone, she called, and then she was happy. She was on a, roller. I had to move her to buy her chicken and chips, and she was excited about that. And then we kept talking. She said I made her day, that she was going for her son. She was retired.
That was a sense of humanity.
Yes. You see, I felt it because she was hurt that she said, where she's coming from, they won't treat her like this. Look at my brothers. Look at, I had to call security. They will give me their phone and I will pay them. She had been paying and now she's exhausted. She don't even have money to eat. Not that she's poor, but at the circumstances she found herself, she couldn't help herself.
Yes.
So basically, we begin to look at these issues. I think it's worth addressing. United Nations is there. Africa should unite.
African leaders are that. And they're on the platform of ECOWAS, for instance.
Yes, ECOWAS, that's West Africa. We're talking of Africa now, all encompassing.
Yeah, but that again can also integrate other parts of Africa to bring about a better relationship within Africa.
Look at this, because like I said, you see, I've taken a strong stand and I'm not going to bend on that.
Yes.
I'm not going to blame. There's a common saying in Benin, where if you call, your own cloth you're wearing as rag, a piece of rag, then the next man will just help you to use to clean.
Yes.
So that's basically what we are witnessing. So you won't blame them. This is our problem. This is our African issue. This is how we treat ourselves. How will you see your brother? Do you even need United Nations to know that your brother is in need?
If you say this, how we treat ourselves.
How we treat, I mean African, black Africans, we that are Africans.
African to African.
I saw something in Lagos sometime ago at around the around. I was driving.
Okay.
In the morning, early in the morning. I was driving and I saw something that moved me to tears. I saw a little boy having few gala, hawking, and then he saw another little beggar on the road was eating, and then he gave him pure water and gala from what he had. Nothing, you don't have anything, you are poor, but your humanity could not allow you to pass by that little child who was destitute at that instant time. So we need to start looking inward.
And teaching it.
Yeah, we need, I'm teaching it.
Yes.
Now, look at it now. You're talking about regularization. What is that for? Now, what Joseph Malema has said, he said you shouldn't, Africa said that I'm black, it's enough for me to just go past. I don't need any other identity. You're trying to check me. I said earlier on, we need to know who is coming in, we need to know all of that. But if we now look at it, closer look at it, I'm an African. Whether I'm from Namibia, I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Niger, I'm from Rwanda, I'm an African. So
ideally, it should be. But we can't throw away the aspect of security. For instance, the aspect of smuggling, like what we are faced with in Nigeria over the closure of land borders and the government being strict on that.
Well, I don't want to join issues with that because I have a lot of reservation on the land borders. Let's not just go there, because we know the borders is shut at some point in time, and at some point in time at night it's open for some folks to move things in. So let's not go there at all.
We don't have any information on that.
There are information to that, and there are clear evidence on that, and people have it everywhere. So
okay,
we don't need to go. Now, the point I'm making is this. We should look inward. We should look at ourselves as one entity, as one brotherhood, as one family, and see how we can help one another. I think that is the best way we can begin to, until we come to that point, we will never secure the respect of the international community or even the United Nations, as it were.
So a huge job for the African leaders.
Yes, and again, it's saddened again that, Patrice Lumumba of blessed memory, the Congolese man, had said then, they gave us political independence, they did not give us economic independence, and these are the few things he said that really led to his death, and they had to kill him because he talked so much. Now, we know that I will also blame, again, in as much as I would totally blame the Western world, because if you try to manipulate, you try to regularize, you try to get into everything I do. Allow me, allow us do what we want to do. Let's grow. We'll grow over time. Don't just keep pulling things from their country, importing and importing. We can develop our own apps. We can keep working on ourselves and see how we can improve over time. And I think if that is done, Africa will be it again and we will get it right. And our leaders not stashing up money abroad, buying up luxurious property abroad in Dubai and everywhere, and they come back home to keep fighting for political offices. Do or die thing we see around. A man that is taking up arms and trying to kill, shortchange the older man because he wants to be in power forever. And you're not going to live forever. But it's unfortunate that at the end of the day, who loses at the end? The commoners and the people. Look at our country. Go to African countries and you'll be ashamed of yourself. Go to a civilized world. I was almost becoming a nuisance in Dubai because I saw the zebra crossing. I had to run through because I've lost that consciousness that at the zebra cross you need to wait. Or rather, you just go through. The vehicles will naturally wait, but here it doesn't work around here. So I had to. They saw me going, and it was then I realized I was supposed to just.
But you're wrong if you say that it doesn't work around here.
When I mean it doesn't work around here,
people don't respect.
They don't respect it. I was angry today driving down to this place. I saw a man, a respect with tie, drank water, bottled water, and threw it through his window. For who? Why will we behave like that? Do we need Obaseki or anybody to correct that, to tell you what to do? Do you need somebody to tell you that's nonsensical? You don't need to be told.
A whole lot of us don't know that the way we dress should also symbolize how we should behave.
Yes.
Because putting on tie means you are a gentleman.
A gentleman. And
you want to do anything that will hurt the environment.
You say all the, okay, well, you see the trash everywhere, and who's going to take care of that? And tomorrow we complain that the road, the gutters, we say with the blob, we're blaming, and people dying and dying every other time. So these are issues.
Let's take a different bite, Fred.
Yeah.
Let's look at the aspect of terrorist groups. Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, that's really engulfing Africa. This again is a challenge, and also increasing the number of
migration
refugees. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So, is there a way out of this for Africa?
Look, these are not problems that we will call rocket science. These are problems that we are allowing to fester. I would say we are allowing to fester because there are problems that are well within our capacities to bring under control. But we are not just doing that. That is why I talked about taking responsibility as an organization, as the leaders or as the leadership group of an organization, and in this case, of the nation. Okay? But the aspect I really wanted to touch on the refugee aspects too, is the very economics of it. You see, people who are naturally or parochially, I would say, anti-migrants, will see an immigrant, and because he saw another citizen of his country that's out of a job, he will say, oh, the reason that citizen is out of a job is because of the immigrant that's from another country. That is not true. That immigrant may be contributing 5-10 times what your unemployed citizens can contribute. And that will build and add to your own GDP, add to the per capita income that will affect those unemployed people positively. China was until 2003, here I remember this vividly, 2003. Streets of China were filled with bicycles. That was their primary mode of transportation in China, 2003. Then General Motors made an announcement. They wanted to establish an automobile assembly plant in China for the sum of $3 billion. And the other producers of automobiles said, wow, what do we have here? General Motors is going to take over the market, that large market. Let us all go there.
Okay.
And then they all flooded the place. Today, you don't see bicycles in China. Power of immigration. You know what? It takes 1.9% growth in population per family for a population of a society to remain the same. Okay? I mean, 2.1, I'm sorry, 2.1. Germany was at 1.9. And that's why they started allowing immigrants to come in, because the population was dwindling. You cannot increase your per capita income. You cannot increase your GDP without people. It takes the contribution of people. It's the aggregate contribution of people that increases the GDP.
Which is supposed to be an advantage.
It's an advantage to have immigrants. Okay? Except that Trump just wants the best of immigrants.
All right. Okay.
You know, so you have to be able to take.
Okay, but at what level do you place South Africa in this case?
So in this, look, the whole of Africa, the whole 54 nations of Africa, okay, has a population that is less than that of China, which is why I use China as an example. Less than that of China. We are just about 1 billion in population. China, they are saying they are pushing 1.6, 1.7 billion.
In population?
In population. A while back, they thought they were poor. Okay? And they also went to the extent of saying 1 child per family. But when they woke up to the advantage of their huge population and embrace technology, which is what we need to embrace as a continent.
Yes.
When they embrace technology and productivity increase.
So it's not enough, enough to have a population?
Yes.
It's another to embrace technology.
You have to embrace technology. You have to embrace intelligence,
so the government
knowledge.
Should drive it.
The government should drive it and drive it aggressively.
And we're not doing that.
We are not doing that. We should be intensive about it. And that is what the developed nations have done. They are intensive about it. They are aggressive about it. You know? So when you do that, you begin to see improvement. You begin to see prosperity. With prosperity, you know, people can come and say, look, now we are not so poor. Let's begin to bring some order into I will tell you, poverty brings a lot of frustration. And that is that's what we are suffering in Africa. That's why you have xenophobic attacks. That's why you have a case of, increasing burgeoning refugee and IDP situations. We need to have a paradigm shift in our thinking.
Okay. Can that also address the aspect of insecurity, terrorist groups?
Yes. Okay. Of course. Part of the reason we have terrorist groups is the same poverty. It's the same challenging economies, lack of opportunities, inequitable opportunities. What do we have in Nigeria? What are we crying about? People who are qualified cannot get jobs. Those who are not qualified get jobs without even writing applications. That's the problem. In the United States, the moment you walk into an office, any business, it is mandatory. They have a sign on their wall. This is an equal opportunity employment company. EOE is there. We do not discriminate on the basis of race, nationality, gender, and all those things are there.
Okay, so now, what's your message to the United Nations?
My message to the United Nations
is
they should take responsibility.
Okay.
They should take responsibility and treat the people with the same standards as they would if they were Americans, they were British,
okay,
they were, French.
Right. Of course, there before I come back to you for your final words on this discussion. Back to you, Patrick. What's your signal or message to the United Nations?
Well, they should be more proactive in terms of what they are doing, and they shouldn't allow the environmental influence to slow down their pace of work, so to say, and they should be able to come out with statements other than evading. They are not making any serious statements with respect to what is happening. Okay,
so they are not doing much.
I'm not saying they are not doing much. I wouldn't use that word.
You are reserved.
I'm reserved because I know what is happening, so to speak. within...
Are you looking at it from the legal perspective? Because being a custodian of the law seems to limit you in that direction.
No, like we had now.
Yes.
That it wasn't united. You know, they believe that United Nations have ejected them. Somebody have gone to complain. Whether you're an immigrant or you're somewhere moving a refugee, I don't give a damn about that. My business is threatened. Only has gone to court. So will we not blame the United Nations for that? Yes, you say, well, but they should have done the needful on time. Like the woman that was crying bitterly. She lost her husband and all of that. Oh, yes, we agree. The problem is this. That's why I said they should be more proactive. Okay. More proactive. But I would say they are not doing well. I wouldn't say that. Because I expect our people back there in South Africa to do bulk of the work. Because this is your own. This is your home. This is your own brother, your sister, your family. We shouldn't just wish them away and say the United Nations. Who was the United Nations? We are all part of the United Nations. Okay. And they should take the, even as much as they're going, the funds are there, budgets have been released, money to do all the needful is there. Okay, now again, if I don't know those that I'm going to be captured in, okay, when I need to get information from the government of the day, because you need to work with them, and you have not gotten that, what do you do? So that is it. Maybe they have been unable to break into the government and ask them vital questions. I don't want to believe that the United Nations is trying to hoard or evade from responsibility. That's not correct. Okay. I honestly believe the problem lies within the South African government, which are played out in the xenophobic attack and all of those activities they are trying. So before you know it, they may start giving them items, and the boys are back again. Okay. That what's supposed to be given to us, you are giving. They don't think they are giving it to these refugees or these displaced people and start attacking them. So they have to work in wisdom. They have to operate and understand what the government is saying before they jump in.
Yeah, now that brings us to our final question on this discussion. The South Africans, the xenophobic violence that has been taking place there and from for quite some time now. Oh, yes. In your final words, as we wrap up, also as you make comments in other areas and the overall, will you say that the aspect of xenophobia, xenophobic attacks on foreigners in South Africa will be something that will be out of the woods soon?
Well, they need to be orientated. Like, if you see the average, with all respect to the South African people, I love them so much, and but the challenge I have is that many of them are not ambitious. They are not determined. They are very easy. They feel they just take life that way. Compared to Nigerians, Nigerians are very ambitious, very determined to do so much.
So you don't see the drive in the South African government trying to acquire that?
They will tell you this is what we are doing, but subtly the body language is not
showing much interest in that direction.
Absolutely. So we cannot fool ourselves and start pretending. In as much as we know Nigerians have taken over their market and we are everywhere in that country and a whole lot is happening, they believe, like he had said.
And that's driving them crazy.
You understand? You're making so much money. Okay, just imagine. The car band that took me from Santi, sitting in Johannesburg, and I said, why are you not living around here? He said, no, I'm living in Soweto. I said, why in Soweto? Why not live here? He said, no, I'm too poor to live here. He has concluded that he's too poor and he can never live in something. It's
That's
the
mentality.
You understand? So he's a South African and I'm not. But when I said, well, very soon we'll change the government, he said, you can't vote in our country. He not told me that I cannot vote in their country. You call it your country, but you still tell, you are, in the same vein, you are telling me you can't live here. So that drive, that no, it's for the rich. I'm over there in Soweto. That is where I belong. So I only come here to work and go back home. So that's appetite has still not left them, though it has been stopped. There's nothing like that. You see, they still see themselves as inferior. It was only in South Africa I saw a white kid was trying to take a picture with someone who was like the mother pulled the baby away. I was wondering, what's this? What's that? It's part of why can't you allow, and the baby ordinarily should understand from that point that we are not the same people, even if we're in the same country. So these are some of the factors. They need help. That is how I say it. They need help. So in all, we cannot begin to, they need to orientate them, they need to rehabilitate many of them. Many of the youth are in drugs, taking drugs on the street, injecting themselves, and a whole lot of stuff they do. I think in as much as we have advices here, I think our young people here are more and more ambitious And that is why they tinted towards, I want to make some money, I want to be rich, I don't want to be under anybody. But over there, they just sit down there and just be watching you until somebody come and say, the reason these people are making money is that's why you are poor. Say, really? And they jump up. We are going to fight them. If you can kill them, then the money will come to you. Okay. And they won't ask questions. How would that happen? Because you need to give to society before you are rewarded in payments.
Great.
If there is no service rendered, then who will pay you? Okay. They don't think about that. I think these are basically the...
Thank you for pulling through on this show. Back to you as we take your final words on this. But quickly, I want to comment and bite on the way out of the woods of xenophobia in South Africa.
I believe we need to work on our mindset as a people. You know, we have to begin to introspect, begin to see ourselves as humans. If you see the next man as a productive person, as a person that has potential, you will treat the person with respect. So we need all of that. And then we need, you know, very well-enabled, focused groups to focus on specific challenges, you know, unusual challenges that we might have, like this that came up. Remember there was a match recently in Europe where the spectators were booing the blacks on the field. I don't remember, that was it Hungary?
Okay.
Or
I think so.
You know, but you know, the government came up immediately, even in all of that crowd, were able to get some people and arrest them to send a message that this is not allowed. You know, this, what you have, it's archaic, it's primitive. We are it's not permitted. In a modern world, we need them. You might not be able to calculate the economic benefits to us by being able to host another nation in a competition here. But we know, because we are the leaders, and we will not tolerate that kind of behavior. Yes, there was a time when people did that, but civilization has advanced. We should move along with civilization. We should know what it's civilized to do. Like he said about people throwing things out, like, you know, which he used as an example. I was just in my primary school a couple of days ago, and I looked at the situation. If I started to cry that day, I would not have even stopped, because the situation is lamentable. One of the problems we have is that we are not teaching our young ones ethics and etiquettes. We need to teach the younger ones as they come. It should be a course in the school, ethics and etiquettes, so that when they get into positions of authority, of responsibility, then they will have value for their integrity and for their dignity, and the dignity and integrity of others. And then they'll help each other along. That's the only way.
Okay.
So it's not just going to happen by writing on a piece of paper a wish list. Okay. Oh, I want us to be like this. It won't be.
Thank you, Fred Uigwe, for coming to make sense out of this. Well, that's where we call it era. Big thanks to Dr. Patrick Awosagi and of course Fred Uigwe, and big thanks also to you, viewers on independent television. This program will come again same time next week, and we'll be having a fresh edition of that. But this is a current call to African leaders, African governments, and particularly the South African government, to key into bringing a dynamic change in this direction, to bring about respite, and also the United Nations. A lot has been said in this direction to make proactive steps in taking care of refugees and making sure that the anomaly is quite not repeated in the next future. But we do hope that the UN, international donors, and stakeholders in this respect will be working ways out to bring respite. We basically hope that. Well, till we come your way again same time next week, I'm Philip Omo Gyupong, and I'm saying stay blessed, remain law abiding, don't get involved in any trouble. Goodbye.